What's going on, Switch Mentality? Today, we're back again with another episode of spotlighting athletes who are doing more. More in the community, more in society, more in the field outside of football. Today, we got one of the coolest teammates, Javien Elliot, whose story is crazy, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear. He walked on to FSU, spent some time in the NFL, came down to the CFL for a little bit, and he's been a guy that's always been big on empowering athletes outside of football. So I want to get him on here not only to talk about his journey as a walk-on, but also his journey in the other part of his life. Because one thing about Javien that I noticed even before I met him, he's equally balanced with who he is as a football player and who he is as a person. And I think sometimes that needs some work, right? It's obviously not an easy thing to accomplish, but his journey and what he got through, I think, helped get him there. So Javien, welcome to the pod, man. I'm happy to get you on here.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you for having me, man. It's an honor.
Love, bro. And first thing I'll ask you, I know you're big on talking about your story as a walk-on, and that was one of the first things I saw before I even met you, what I think is like really cool because it's really just a testament to your persistence, right? You were told no so many times. So for the people who don't know, you might dive into that a little bit and just let them know what that process was like.
You know, playing football was always a dream of mine, you know, just like most athletes. But when I graduated high school, I didn't have any scholarships offers. I didn't have any stars. You know, I wasn't really recruited like that. So because of that, I ended up going 3 years without playing football after high school. And during that time, you know, speaking of like switch mentality, I kind of got a glimpse of that coming out of high school, having, you know, not being able to play football. So, you know, during that time, I was kind of lost, kind of depressed, not really knowing who I was as a person. And I had an opportunity to go and walk on to Florida State 3 years later. And that's kind of how I got in that door, being a walk on there.
The opportunity that you got being a walk-on, was that the first time you asked? Like, what was the process to you actually like getting that opportunity of being a walk-on and you actually like being on the team? Because I saw it was a few times that you had to kind of go back and kind of get a sense for when there was a possibility that you can join them, right?
Like my dad really kind of like coordinated. He was just like, hey, we're trying to, you know, I've made some phone calls to Florida State and I sent them their highlight and, you know, they said that they would be willing to let you walk onto the team, but you have to get your AA degree. So, you know, that's 2 years minimum. You may be able to get it sooner, but I know that was my process. I had to wait 2 years to do it. We just got a contact through Florida State and, you know, just had to play that waiting game.
And I don't think people can really like put that into words, really. Like, you knew there was an opportunity, but you had to go to school for 2 to 3 years. And during that process, what was your mindset like?
I mean, honestly, I always thought it was far-fetched. I thought it was a pipe dream, to be real, like, because where I come from, not a lot of people go and play college football at the highest level. And, you know, really college football, period. Like, there's some guys that, like, over the years, there's been a lot more players, but around the time when I was there, like I didn't have any guidance. So it was like, I always idolized, like, college football and the NFL. So it was only something that I saw on TV or playing a video game. So, like, for me to be able to have that opportunity, it's like I'm constantly having that battle of, man, like, I can't believe I'm going to actually get an opportunity to play football. But on the other side, it's also like, am I good enough? Am I tall enough? Am I fast enough? Like, these guys are some of the best recruits in the world. These guys are going to play in the NFL, first round draft picks. Like, so I was always having that battle of just imposter syndrome and really just like trying to, you know, just really believe. Honestly, like, I knew it was an opportunity, but, you know, it was just always, that was the biggest thing that I had to kind of get over myself because, like I said, I wasn't really recruited. And during that process of waiting, it's like, I'm not playing football, really, like real football. I'm like playing flag football, going to the gym and playing pickup basketball. Like, I wasn't like training. I wasn't like, you know how we have like trainers everywhere now. Instagram, social media, like you see a lot of training. Like, that wasn't really a huge as big as it is now. So I wasn't able to just like link up with a trainer and go train. Like I was just trying to stay active, honestly. Like
Right, right.
that was just the whole thing with me.
Like you said, you're about to go into a situation where, you got 5 stars, 4 stars. Like Florida State's obviously a big program, and for you to like lock in and have that confidence in yourself is huge because for every one Javien Elliot, there's 100 people who've decided, nah, I'm good, right? 100 people that said I'm not good enough, and that imposter syndrome creeped in and was able to take them out from what they wanted, to achieve. And the biggest thing on Switch is what we try to do. We try to like take those transferable skills and apply them to life. So with you being like 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, really, to be able to like walk on, go to the NFL, how do you take what you learned through that process and apply it to everyday life?
I think that's one of the best things that could have happened to me because when I got to Florida State and actually became a walk on and actually got a chance to sit in those meeting rooms and hear Jimbo Fisher talk and hear other athletes how the confidence they had and having motivational speakers come in, like it was like a paradigm shift. Like I had never heard greatness being talked about the way it is. I have never heard people talk about becoming the best version of themselves and how we're seeking perfection, like knowing that we're never going to be perfect, but we're constantly seeking perfection. And that's like we're going to hold each other accountable to that. And, that was just like, I don't want to say it was the opposite, but it was something that hasn't really been preached to me before. And that, that carried over to the NFL. And the mindset that Florida State is ran like an NFL program, so that helped me transition to the NFL and having that mindset there. And then when it comes to that level of, it's really being like once it's a 1% mindset, really. Like,
Right.
if you can be successful in the NFL, if you can be successful at a high D1 football program, like you may not have the success on the field, but they are pouring into you how to be successful off the field. And you just translate that from football to everything else. So if it's like with us, we're producing content. So it's like, you know, we got to do the same thing that we do on the field to prepare for a game that we have to do to be successful in a podcast or whatever it is that we do. It's the it's the things that seem boring. It's the same that it's the time that you have to put in, the reps, like
Right.
all of those things, studying, everything. But to the T, like not just, we're talking about being the best. We're talking about, separating ourselves from the average person. So that's kind of some of the things that I learned from football and was able to apply it to anything else. That's kind of how I do moving forward, whether I'm in the photography. Like I love like one thing I learned about myself is that I love being in the details. I love like putting in the work. Like I was in the photography and when I was taking pictures, I love the process of being able to take a photo and editing it and turning it into something beautiful. Like, but not because I love art. I
Right.
love, I don't love pictures. I love the art of creating something. I love the art of being great. So I think that's really like that's one thing I learned when it came to applying things outside of sports.
You said a lot of good things I want to unpack a little bit. But the first thing that I can't stop emphasizing is your environment, right? And I think you kind of hit that on the head. Like you got to FSU and it was like, whoa, this is how we do things. Either you get in line and you do it in a certain way and you like move a certain way, whether it's with confidence, accountability, discipline, or you get lost, right? And it's there's no in between. Like it's this or that. And similar to the outside world, like with me, I'm in law. This is how we do things, right? That I got to get this to a client. The client expects it to look a certain way. Either I get it to them that way or I don't. If you don't,
Yeah.
this office that you like, it might not be here when you get back. And it's the
Right.
same with football, right? Like in the football, this is how we do it. In pros, you might get back to your locker, boom, envelope, plane ticket. And you know how they do people, bro.
Yeah.
It's dirty. And
Yeah.
with FSU, it could just be, hey, bro, you're a good player, but not a good fit for us here. You got to go, bro. So that is huge. But I really want to emphasize that environment point because sometimes people get in a stage where it's, man, I don't feel like I'm growing. I don't feel like I'm getting to a level where I think I need to be. And then you look around and you see like their friends, and it's, bro, if your environment, the people you hang around with haven't like either held you accountable or give you that motivation and inspiration to do more, it's difficult to do this life by yourself, bro. Like it is difficult, right? So
Yeah.
I think that part and you applying it to whether it's JV University or JV the author or JV the photographer, like all these different caps that you're wearing, the one thing that always remains is the work, the sweat equity, right? Like you know how to work, and regardless of anything else, whether you reach tens and millions of people, you reach tens of thousands, or one or two people, you'll never regret that work because you know that that's just part of the process. So that
Yeah.
part is like huge for sure. And the other thing I want to talk about was you like wearing all these hats. Like, what do you say to people who will like say to you, man, like just be an athlete, like kind of stay in your lane? Like, how do you navigate that? And has that situation ever come up to you?
It hasn't really came up to me, but it's something that has always been on my mind. Like, if I start making content, what are the coaches going to think about me? If I start doing this, what are my teammates going to think about me? Like, but honestly, that's really just a toxic way of thinking, really, like to limit somebody to one thing. Now, the you have to have that fine line of what's your priority.
Right,
Like, if football is your priority, then you have to move accordingly. You don't want anything that you're doing outside of football to interfere with football, but you do want to be able to have some things that you can do that may not, whether it's just a mental break from football or whether it's just you pursuing a passion. Because at the end of the day, everyone has something that they like to do, whether
right,
it's like going golfing or whether it's like just going out to eat or, like hobbies, going to the gun range, like whatever it is, like, for someone to be able to tell you that, hey, don't make any content because you're a football player, then it's like, okay, so you saying it's okay for me to party? Like it's okay for me to
right,
go
right.
to the club for 3 hours? Like, like it's like what are you doing with your time? Like everyone has something that they do with their time.
Hundred
It's just a
percent.
matter of what's getting in the way. Like if it's like, hey, this is becoming detrimental and
Yeah,
we ain't seeing, like it's starting to become a negative thing, then it's like, all right, then you should evaluate and be like, okay, maybe I do need to put this to the side or whatever. But like when I was doing my content, it's not like I was doing full-time content and being a full-time
right,
football player. Like it was like, no, I'm a full-time football player, but maybe every once in a while I'll drop a video, or something like that. But
right.
before, like my mindset it used to be like, I don't want them to think that I don't love football or anything like that. You just got to know what's best for you. And like I said, as long as it's not interfering with how you perform or what's interfering with your habits, your studying habits, like you're recording content but you're not watching film, like then it's like, all right, you
Yeah.
tripping. But you just got to have that balance, really.
I couldn't have said it better myself because it's tough sometimes, bro. And I think what you mentioned about, coaches, you don't want coaches or players to think I'm not serious or locked in because I do this on the side, but they don't know really like what else I'm doing and how much work I'm putting into this football. And I think for me, because it was a toxic way to think about it, but for me, it was like, all right, let me keep the main thing, and then everything else is on the side, right? And as long as the main thing's taken care of, because everyone's got 24 hours, you know what I mean? You sleep for 8, you got 16 hours. If you dedicate 10 hours to football, and that's even like a stretch for real, like during the season. But if you dedicate 10 hours per day to football, you still have 6 hours, right? Like, what are you doing in those 6 hours? Like, some guys are partying, you know what I mean? Some guys are playing Xbox, some guys are taking courses, some guys are making content. So it's tough sometimes because, the messaging sometimes, not only from, and I don't want to say it's from coaches, but just what you feel internally, whether you feel a vibe or whether it's from social media, it's like, I can only do one thing. And I think you described it as like toxic. That's like the perfect way to describe it because there's always a way to do more if that's what your heart desires, right?
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. So, no, I appreciate you sharing that because not only is something that I've went through a little bit, but I know a lot of people watching this. It's kind of like a similar effect, whether it be football or even outside of football, because you have people, maybe they're working their careers and they want to like do something on the side, but they're scared
Mhm.
to. For you, as someone who has played, you played D1, you played in the CFL, like you were in the NFL for a little bit. The question I'll ask you, like being in those locker rooms, NFL, CFL, NCAA, how prominent is the conversation of life after football? Like, do you think that's something that guys talk about? Do you think it's something that guys worry about after their career? Like, how often do you think that conversation actually comes up, and how many guys in the locker room do you think it's something they're considering?
It actually comes up probably. It depends on who you're hanging around and what type of guys you're around. It comes up more than you think, but the thing about it is a lot of times we don't think about ourselves personally. Like, so you may have an older guy who's having that conversation with you, like, what do you think about this, or what do you think about life after football and stuff? But if you're a young guy, you're probably thinking, I'm about to play 10 years. Like, I'm not thinking like that. Like, so it's just
Right,
like
right,
you have the conversation, but it's just kind of like in one ear and out the other, and you don't really like ponder on it and really think because you're just living in the moment, and that's
right,
okay. But at the same time, it's like you don't have to go full fledged into, all right, I got to hurry up and get what I'm going to do in life outside of football. But you definitely want to be able to plant seeds and just kind of set yourself up, because once you're done playing football, if you don't know who you are, it's that's going to lead to depression. It's going to lead to just like identity crisis and all sorts of things. Like, once you're done playing football, it's gonna regardless. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough regardless. But sometimes you can help ease that transition by kind of having a plan, or just kind of having something like, dang, I remember we talked about this. Let me, But if you just like football only, those are the ones that's going to take it the hardest, because that's all you knew. And I was that guy. I don't want to make it seem like I always had a plan or I always knew what was what. Yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
So, was there a moment that it clicked for you?
Yeah, well, for me, like I said earlier, I've had like short intervals of being without
Right,
football,
right,
because like when I graduated high school, I didn't play football for 3 years, and I was just lost. I was just existing. Like, I didn't feel like I was living, because I had this unhealthy attachment to football. Like, I've been playing football since I was 5, and now all of a sudden it's taken away from me. And I actually get a chance to walk on Florida State, go play in the NFL. And then after playing 4 years in the NFL, I don't play the COVID year, but I'm not playing in the COVID year, but I'm not thinking like, oh, I need to figure out what I'm gonna do after football. Really, with me, it's like it's a pandemic. I'm not about to play this year. But then
right,
once that year ends and I don't get picked up the next year, it's like, dang, because a lot of people didn't play the COVID year. So
right,
after that, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna get picked up next year. Like, I'm still in shape, all that. But then it's like, dang, like I didn't get picked up. Like, all right, well, let some time go by. I'm still be in shape or whatever. But though that was the moment during like 2021 and 2022 when I was just like, dang, like I need to figure out who I am, or I need to like try to, start setting something up. And
right,
that's how I got into photography. Like, I'm not into photography now, but that was just like something, just to like have something to do with my time, like just go walk around. It was actually almost therapeutic. Just
right,
I was doing street photography or even going into nature or whatever. But that was kind of like my second time going through it, and then I ended up going into the CFL late in 2021 or 2022. And the pay in the CFL, like, it's not really the best. So I'm like, all right, how can I? That's when the whole content thing started coming up. Like, let me try to form a plan of how I can you know get some money outside of football.
right. No, that's huge, and it looks like you're well on your way, because I know last year when we was talking, you told me last year that you thought about retirement. You didn't go through with it. Like, you came back and wanted to do one more season. And then after
Yeah.
this season, I remember after the season, we was chopping it up, and you were like, I think I might be done. I'm not sure yet. I'm kind of still figuring it out. And then I
Mhm.
saw, like, a month ago or a few weeks ago, you decided, okay, like, I'm done. When did you feel comfortable enough to make that leap into retirement?
Like you said, it was always a thought of mine. Like, I almost retired before I signed with Hamilton. Like, I was
Right.
almost done, but just praying, doing a lot of praying, and talking to a lot of my close family and friends, they were just like, just give it one more shot because I got injured in Calgary that year where I pretty much didn't play the whole year. And
Right.
so I was like, okay, let me give it another chance, sign back. And even throughout the year, it was a thought process of mine because it's hard to play football.
Mm,
I wasn't 1 foot in and 1 foot out, but it's hard. Like once you like that off season early, like before I signed with Hamilton, like I
mm,
was going through it a lot because I was torn between retiring and not retiring, and I was just going through a lot of like a depression phase, and I had to really
yeah.
get myself to a certain point to even play football because I thought I was done. So for me to get my
Right.
mind right
Right.
and go and play in Hamilton that year really said a lot because I had to fight even throughout the season last year to show up to really not just show up and be there, to show up and play like myself.
Right.
Um, so it was always a thought, but once the season was over with, I was just thinking like, do I want to do I really want to go through another like the CFL season? It's a long year, but for me, it's also like what the risk versus the reward. Honestly, like
Right.
I'm putting my body on the line, and the reward just wasn't really enough for me. So it wasn't an easy decision because no matter how much you think about it and talk about it, like um, knowing that because me, I could still play another 4 or 5 years. Like, even with me making that decision not to come back to the CFL, it still was a tough decision because yeah, I do have my hand in different pots, like you said, where there's content with me writing a book and all these other things, but it's still uncertainty, and it's still like, dang, like I'm probably never going to play football again. Like it's so I
Right.
don't want to make it seem like I'm just so confident being able to walk away from the game. It's just like I'm walking out on faith. I'm walking out on
Mm,
faith, and I'm walking out with a plan, yes, but it's also like it's not an easy decision. So as much as we
right.
talk about having an identity outside of sports, like I still want them to know that regardless, it's going to be a tough. If you love the game the way that I love the game and the way that most people love the game, it's going to be tough regardless. So it just helps. It just helps to have that
Right.
identity.
I think the biggest thing is really just like giving yourself a little bit of a launching pad because regardless, it's going to be difficult, right? But now I really just wanted to give you the space to, talk about Javien University, to talk about you becoming an author and writing a book. And I want to ask you to one, not only like talk about your platform and kind of what you're inspiring for and what your goal is, but also did you face some of that imposter syndrome of, starting a pod, writing a book because people who've been authors or like trying to write a book for years and of course you're getting your hand into it, but what do you say to people who are like entering a new avenue, a new space, and you're doing it now with Javien University?
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of time like seeking God, building my relationship with God and asking him to use me in any way that he wants to. And these are
Right.
just avenues in which he's doing that because my platform is all about helping the younger athletes, helping people, having people tell their stories of how they overcame adversity and how they never gave up, similar to my story. Just people, one thing everybody have or everybody's going to face is adversity. And I want to be able to create a space where it's entertaining, it's inspiring, and it's encouraging, and at the same time it's like everything that I do is to help people that grow up like me, that grew up like me, who are underdogs, help people who
Right.
maybe they, like in similar positions as me, so whether you're a number one draft pick or an undrafted player, at some point you're gonna have a moment where you're gonna be an underdog, like at some point people you're gonna in your football career, people gonna look at you and they're going to be like, okay, we don't think you're the player we think you can be or that we
Right.
think you are. Like, what are you going to do about it? Like
Right.
just look at
Right.
Lamar Jackson,
Right.
like Lamar Jackson in his time with the Ravens. Like like he having to fight for his contract
Right.
but look at who he is. Like this is Lamar Jackson, but in that moment he's an underdog. Like he like teams he's looking to get traded and don't no team reach out to get the trade for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Like, you feel me? It's like even like everybody at some point in their life is going to be they may not themselves be an underdog, but they may have an underdog moment, and that's what this platform is all about. It's all about like highlighting, just being able to overcome anything, bro. Like just motivating people. I'm thankful for it, grateful for it, and that's really all it's all about.
I love that, especially the Lamar Jackson comparison, because really, this is the dude who won MVP. He's about to hit free agency, and teams are talking about, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want him."
Right,
And it's like, I think that's regardless of who you are. LeBron James, 2011 Finals, he has a bad form. LeBron's not this. It's like, bro, this is LeBron James. You know what I mean?
right,
Like, what?
right,
Nah. So I think that, I think that's huge. I think that's huge because regardless of who you are, how successful you've been, there's always going to be a moment in time where your back's against the wall, and when that moment happens, what do you do? Right. So
right.
I love the platform that you're doing, bro. I love your relationship with God and how you aren't really like shy or afraid to emphasize that message to the people that inspire, that people that follow you and look up to you, because that's another thing that sometimes people are a little bit more shy to really like put a spotlight on. But again,
Mhm.
you're empowering people not only like outside the game, the underdogs, but also people who are chasing their faith, bro. And I would really wanted to get you on to really speak about those things. And for me, like, I'd be looking at your stuff and watching it, and I'm getting inspired by it. So I know a lot of people who see this are going to get inspired for it. So I just want to thank you for, not obviously taking the time coming on here and spinning some game for real, bro. Like, you're spinning some game. And,
Appreciate it.
and I think there's a lot for stuff that people to go off on. But before I let you go, at the end of each pod, we do like a quick segment where I'm gonna ask you like a couple of questions. You gotta answer. It's like popcorn question. You ask me like quick, like a sentence or less. Really, you ready?
Yeah, let's get it.
All right, bet. Favorite play you ever made?
I like the pick that I had against Cam Newton, but I got so many plays that I like. It's like
Yeah.
to narrow down to one, man. That's tough. But that's one. That was my first pick in the NFL. I'll just leave it at that, just because you only said
Bet.
one.
What's the best advice you ever got?
Honestly, I've gotten a lot of great advice, but the best thing was just building that relationship with God. Honestly, seeking God, and because what you said. I know you said a sentence, bro, but like ask
Go
me
ahead,
to
bro. Go ahead.
and then narrow it down to a sentence. But honestly, bro, like when you talk about building your identity, bro, like that's what's helped me tremendously, because my identity was always consumed in football. And the more
Right.
that I pursue God and chase God, He has shown me and is continuing to show me daily who I am and how He made me. And, like we are all created with a purpose, and we are all created to produce. We are creative. We are made in the image of God, bro. And like
Right.
one thing that I like to say is how the same way that God created everything, at one point it was nothing. At one point it was just dark. And He created everything. He created us. He chose us to be right here in this moment. And it's the same thing within us. Like we don't know what we're going to create. Look at this. Like this iPhone right here, bro, it was nothing at one point in time,
Right.
and now it's
Right.
created, bro. So whatever, like the best advice that I want to give is there's something in us. It's something in us that's meant to be created. And
Mm.
you feel me? That's the best advice. What are you going to
Nah, for
produce?
sure. Honestly, bro, we gonna end on that, because I think that's nah for real. Like, that's huge, bro. That's huge, because I'm listening to you like I might get that tatted on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, but like for real, because bro, everything starts at zero. You know what I mean? Regardless of you want to be a football player, it starts at zero. You want to
Yeah,
be, a content creator, it starts at zero. You want to be a teacher, it starts at zero. Now that
yeah,
you, like, that's just the reality situation. It's not easy, but that's what it is. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, and if you have like that ultimate faith in God, which who literally this was nothing, and then boom, we got universes, we got galaxies, we got Earth. You know what I mean? We got all these organisms living together and working together to make this shit work.
yeah.
How can you look at your dream and be like, nah, it's too big? It's
Ex-
impossible, right? It's impossible. So I wanna end on that, because I want that to be someone that people think about, bro. Because even when you're talking about
Yeah,
it, I'm like, damn, bro, like that's 100%, bro. So
yeah,
Javien, I appreciate you coming in, talking about like really everything. That's what we do on this pod, really. Like, we don't talk much about football, but we really wanna talk about the human being, right? The person outside of the game, and you with like Javien University, you with your underdog story, you with your relationship with God. It's all things that are inspiring people, and I hope will inspire a lot of people who watch this. So I appreciate you taking the time for sure, and I can't wait to continue watching your journey because you're doing amazing things, bro. So keep at it.
Yeah, appreciate you for having me on, man. I had a good time, man. Thank you, and I
Right.
wish you nothing but the best moving forward. You know, you got a good thing going, so just keep it up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
All right.